Greetings, friend, and welcome to the Between the Covers podcast, where we are working every day to remove the self-limiting beliefs that are preventing us from becoming the heroes of our own stories. I am Marcus Spar, and today I wanted to do another things I've learned from various, media that I enjoy and participate in. Before we get into that, I do just want to remind you that if you have any questions that we can discuss on the podcast or suggestions for heroes that I can study for future hero study podcasts, then take a look at my description where you can find my website and fill out a form to send those ideas to me. Today, I want to talk about what I have learned from this very specific series of video games that I have a love and hate relationship with. They are known colloquially as the Soulsborne games. Over my left shoulder here, I actually have a poster that is just the next one in my rotation that happens to be Dark Souls themed. Just some quick history here about this franchise. The Souls games started in 2009 with the release of Demon's Souls on the PlayStation 3, and then it moved to Dark Souls, and they came out with a trilogy for that series. There was Bloodborne, there is Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice, and the most recent one has been Elden Ring. These are, especially Elden Ring, has been a very popular game, and the thing that these games are known for is they are known for being brutally challenging. They're also really good at setting traps, and while there have been remasters and remakes and re-releases, one of the things that is a thread between all of these is warning, prepare to die. What does that mean? That means they don't hold back their punches a whole lot. And that means there have been some very good lessons for me to have learned over the years from playing these games. The reason why I chose this topic is because I've been playing the remake of Demon's Souls on the PlayStation 5, and I've just been absorbed in this game lately. I'm trying to get the last 2 trophies that I can get, and then I will actually be done with it. Until the next time I get that bee in my bonnet to play this game again. The first lesson that has been really standing out to me lately is the importance of playing to your strengths. A great example is the very first time I played this game back on the PlayStation 3. I played a character who was more of a melee fighter, and I relied on a bow a lot. I would get into combat with my sword and my shield, and I typically would try and carry the heaviest armor that I could in order to get the best defense that I could get my hands on for various challenges. As soon as I got the remake, I decided to change the kind of character I was going to play. And I started with a character that is much more magic focused. So one of the things that oftentimes happens is in these games, if you are not building your character toward a strength build, then you're going to be a little squishy. We always joke around about the squishy wizards and spellcasters. And this character is no different. However, I kept playing this character the same way that I played all of my previous characters. I would try and get these powerful swords and these good shields, and I would go in with melee fighting strategies, but my character also doesn't have the endurance to use some of the heavier armors. I mean, technically, anyone can use the armor regardless of whether they're proficient with it or not. The problem that you run into is I play a much more evasive game, so I roll around a lot. And if your armor is too heavy, then we joke around that, and by we I mean Libby and I, but we joke around that we roll and we thud the ground and create an earthquake. You don't really roll that far, you don't roll that fast, and it leaves you open to just getting ganked on. So that's how I was playing this character, using the starting equipment that I had from the very beginning. And I was getting frustrated with especially some of the bosses, but trying to make my way into some certain areas has just been challenging. And the reason why is because I was not playing to my character's strengths. What's my character good at? Magic. What am I not using? Magic. And so by the end of my first playthrough with this character, I had some decent magic and I actually started using it. And lo and behold, some bosses, there's this one in particular in Demon Souls, it's known as the Man-Eater, and it's kind of a chimera gargoyle kind of enemy. It is one of the most notorious bosses for me because it's the only one that about halfway through, it sends a second one after you. I was dying to this boss over and over again, and it was frustrating. And then I was looking up some strategies. I tried some things online, and some of these strategies didn't really help. And then I tried playing to this character's strength. I was using a very powerful sorcery that can hit these enemies multiple times. And the last time I took this thing down, I was able to kill the first one by the time the health bar of the second one showed up. So it hadn't even joined the fight yet. It was so much easier when I was playing my character the way that I had built them. This would be something we all can learn. What are your strengths? What are my strengths? What am I good at? What are you good at? What can you bring to the table that can contribute to a problem, to a conversation, to even a party, to some kind of gathering? What can you bring? And instead of trying to be something or do something that someone else is good at or has told you is what you should be good at, do what you naturally are already good at. Play to your strengths, not someone else's. Second thing I want to talk about is probably going to be one of the most divisive topics, especially for those who play these games, is there's this tendency of people who struggle to play these games to just say, well, you just need to get good. Get good is kind of a call that comes out a lot when people are mentioning that they're struggling with something. It's like, well, just get better at the game. And that is a legit way to improve and to overcome some challenges. And grinding can also help with that as well. Now, what do I mean by grinding? In gaming culture, this is something that I grew up with a lot, especially playing role-playing games where you gain experience, you can level up, you can get stronger. As you get stronger, you learn different abilities and different magics and things of that nature. What grinding is is when you decide not to move on in a game and you go back to previous areas and you just fight some of these monsters, enemies that you have been fighting for a while now, and you continue to gain experience. You continue to make yourself stronger through this grind in order to prepare yourself for this new area that you are really struggling with. Just like in life, there are some things where we just need to get better. I need to get better at communicating. I need to get better at actually expressing what my needs are and having some difficult conversations with people. That's something where I do just need to get good. And at the same time, what's a way that I can get good at having these kind of conversations? Well, I practice. I can grind. When I have a smaller thing that I want to talk about, I can be brave enough to open up that conversation with someone. Have a challenging, maybe difficult conversation, and just gain that experience in walking in that strength, in being brave and being vulnerable and putting myself out there. There is nothing wrong with grinding and improving your abilities and your skills and your experience in order to prepare you for a much more difficult challenge down the road. If you find yourself being one of those who moves on to something new and it's really challenging, it's intimidating, and maybe you're like me and you have serious imposter syndrome that comes in, there is nothing wrong with saying, you know what, I can't handle this right now. I'm going to improve myself and then come back to this. We can even use this through a mental health lens about how valuable it is to work with a therapist in order to help you get over some difficult challenges that you're facing. I shared this on the last podcast, actually, how I wouldn't have been able to bounce back from all of the depression that I was experiencing from 2023 onward if it wasn't for going and speaking with my therapist, having my solid friends group, being honest with Libby, and taking an antidepressant to help me become more regulated. I was not able to handle a lot of these challenges that were coming my way. And those were all ways that I was able to build myself up in order to take on the challenges that were ahead of me. Now, this one's going to be a little morbid here because I am borrowing the tagline for the Dark Souls games, and that is number 3, prepare to die. Now, I don't mean that you need to go about life with an expectation that you turn one corner and something bad is going to happen and suddenly you're gone. Though that does happen. What I am talking about is the importance of accepting essentially our own limited existence here. I know of many people who are so busy chasing their youth that they no longer have and investing so much money in trying to make themselves look young. And what can you be doing with that instead? What's the legacy that you could leave behind? I have actually a pretty decent example here is my mother-in-law. She has loved to collect little tchotchkes and china and all of these really immaculate creations. Man, I don't even really know what to call them sometimes, but they are antiques. Let's just use the word that they actually are. They're antiques. And I've had conversations with Libby in the past about how when the time comes that her parents move on and they pass away, there's kind of some fear about how are we going to handle all of this stuff. And one of the things that my mother-in-law has actually done is she's starting to get rid of some of this stuff. This stuff that she has enjoyed for a time, but it's not necessarily something that anyone else is going to want. And there's nothing wrong with that. Enjoy what you have. However, there is also value in preparing for the end, so to speak. I have shared in my story that I'm very comfortable with the idea and the concept of death. I am very comfortable with my own death and the death of those around me. Yeah, I'll grieve. I will miss these people when they pass on. Yet we're talking about the one inevitability in life. We all die until there is something like a singularity. Is it a singularity? I don't know. Some kind of sci-fi interpretation where humans can start uploading their brains into computers, which we don't even have the storage space to house one human brain right now, from what I understand. It is something that we need to prepare for. It's something to just hold on to lightly. Not that we become grim and depressed all the time, but there is value in just recognizing, you know what? I'm not going to be here forever. But one of the things that will be around well beyond our time is the impact that we have had on our families, our friends, and those around us. That's more important in my book than chasing some far-off dream of being in your 50s and your 60s and still looking like you're in your 20s or your 30s. Number 4, what I want to talk about here is challenges are so much easier to overcome when you have friends. This is actually something that's probably going to be a theme throughout many of these episodes. And that is in the Soulsborne games, they have this multiplayer dynamic where you have one person who is the host, and then the host is capable of recruiting or summoning 2 other people. And those 2 others, their job is to help protect the host and help them take down the boss. And I can tell you from, Demon Souls I played by myself 100%. Dark Souls, I played 100% by myself. Bloodborne, I did the same thing. But as soon as I got to Dark Souls 2 and 3, things were getting very difficult for me to handle all on my own. And there's this actually really funny story where Libby decided this one time, she's like, you know what, it might actually be fun to play these Dark Souls games with you. And I legit felt like I was in one of those moments where it's like, I better not spook the deer right now, because this could be huge. And Libby and I started playing those games together. We had a great time. Sometimes. However, one of the things that was very common is that there would be some boss or some force that we'd come across that if I was trying to tackle it by myself, I would have died over and over and over and over again trying to make it work. And with the help of Libby, or the help of my friend Ben, or pretty much any of my other friends. For a while, we played Bloodborne, myself, Libby, and Ben, and we had a great time doing so. Yet, one of the things that became kind of a thread throughout these entire experiences is it was always easier when you had other people at your side. If you have people supporting you, if you have people who are covering your back, if you have individuals who you trust to get you through and to your end goal that you're striving for, it is going to be so much easier than if you try and scale that mountain on your own. I think of the example of people who try and climb the Alps, I think it is, where they can hire Sherpas to help them climb the mountain. So many people wouldn't have been able to make it if they didn't have the help of this native tribe where this is what they do. They climb the mountain. Having those who are either more experienced than we are, or even just having people there learning with you and who can offer a different perspective can, in many cases, make the struggles so much easier. Doesn't necessarily mean you're going to overcome every roadblock on your first try, but you can overcome them usually way faster than if you're just trying to do it on your own. And the last one that I'm going to share for this episode, because I did the same thing as the previous one, I wrote down 10 ideas and we're only getting through half of them here. But the last one is, and I feel like I can't stress this one enough. The last one is, there are always going to be assholes that just want to see you suffer. I think of all of the people that bullied me when I was growing up. I think of individuals who believe themselves to be better or more deserving of something, and they are willing to do whatever they can in order to keep you from getting what they want. I think of individuals who are, the whole purpose of what they're trying to do is just steal identities or try and get easy money. There are always going to be assholes that just want to see you suffer. What can we do with them? Well, we can do everything that we can, such as building up a good community of people that can support us when we go through these difficult trials. What brought this idea to my mind is in these Soulsborne games, they do have this multiplayer mechanic, and yet one of the things that they have available is a host is able to have 3 people join their game. But you can only summon 2 allies because they always keep 1 slot open for someone who wants to invade. And the invader's job is to take down the host before they make it to the boss, or before they cross some certain threshold. But I cannot tell you how frustrating this has been. There's a reason why I only played Demon Souls and Dark Souls and Bloodborne by myself. Is because if I ever played the games online, it was frustrating constantly having people run in and invade in order to make my life miserable. And there are just going to be people like that. In fact, I think of this time that Libby and I were playing Demon Souls 3, and we were trying to get through this rather challenging area. And I swear whenever I was the one who was hosting, I kept getting invaded. And this was an area where there was a higher than average chance that you were going to get invaded. And this one time I get invaded and I was just like, I'm so done. I'm just done with this. And I run kind of back toward the beginning of this area, and I've got this red phantom who's chasing after me, and I just have my character jump off of this castle and fall to his death. And I remember after that happened, the person who invaded me sent me a message through the Sony network, and all he said was, why? Like, why did you do that? And I did not give him the honor of a response. Why did I do that? Because I was tired of these people who were just trying to make my life miserable. And after a while, Libby and I were able to get through that area without being invaded, and I didn't have to worry about that anymore. Sometimes, and I am as guilty of this as anyone, I tend to give too much mental real estate to these people who are name calling or leaving negative comments or just having these negative perceptions and just making me miserable. We don't need to do that. In fact, we kind of live in a time when we can limit those kind of interactions with people. And I know some people are going to say, but it's not healthy if you do that. It's up to you to decide what's healthy for you. I am recording this towards the end of October. After this comes out, the primaries here in the United States will be hopefully finished, and we're going to know who the next president is. I am getting tired of all of the political bullshit that I keep getting served. And so I willingly restrict what comes in. Because when there's all of this mudslinging, when there's all of this name calling, when there's just all of this negativity about this candidate or this party or that party, I don't want to be exposed to that 24/7. I am trying to be more informed this year, but I have my limits. It is my responsibility to know where those limits are and to set those appropriate boundaries. If there is someone in your life who constantly makes you feel miserable, it's your job to protect yourself from that. If you have an asshole in your life who just wants to see you suffer, you don't need to have that asshole in your life. And I'm not even going to be apologetic about what I'm saying here. These people, there are some of them that will try and do this in love, but there's also some people where they just use it to make themselves feel better about themselves. Because I believe I've mentioned in a previous episode, for a lot of these people, it is easier for them to bring others down in order to lift themselves up than it is to actually overcome their own struggles and issues. In the world that we live in, there's always going to be people like this. There are always going to be people until we get to some kind of pinnacle of human existence where we can live without judging people because of their skin color, because of their religion, because of their culture, because of their background. There are always going to be those people who just want to see us suffer. And if you know someone like that, you don't have to be around them. That is your choice. I hope these lessons have been inspiring to you as they've been inspiring to me. And these are things that I remind myself of often. And we will see what more we can learn in a future episode. And until next time, live strong for today.